President Trump says he wants it to start as soon as possible. Israel insists it's not opposed to it, and Palestinians are crying out for progress. So why hasn't the Gaza ceasefire moved to phase 2? All of the living hostages have been returned, but Hamas is still refusing to disarm. Is this make or break for the peace process? You're watching Counterpoints with me, Melinda Nusafora. Months on from a ceasefire hailed as historic peace in the Middle East, and the truce hasn't progressed beyond the first stage. President Trump declared the deal, implemented in October last year, as the start of a new chapter, but not many pages have turned since then.
If they don't disarm as they agreed to do, they agreed to it, and then they'll be held to pay for them. And we don't want that. We're not looking for that, but they have to disarm within a fairly short period of time.
His time frame is, as is often the case, ambiguous, but there can be no doubt the president's patience is wearing thin. Humanitarian groups say the promised increase in aid hasn't materialized, nor has the proposed Board of Peace.
There's an attempt to bring an international force. So far, it hasn't come to fruition, but we'll give it a chance, because if it can be done, again, as the president and I have said, if it can be done the easy way, fine. And if not, it'll be done another way.
On this episode, we'll debate why 3 months on has the truce not moved to phase 2. If Hamas's refusal to disarm is the biggest hurdle, and if the whole deal was too ambiguous to ever succeed. Well, joining us for this discussion is Rawan Osman, a Syrian-born German Middle East commentator. Thanks for being here, Rawan. Ksenia Svetlova, former Israeli Knesset member and executive director of ROPES, the Regional Organization for Peace, Economics and Security, is back with us. And rounding out our panel is Dr. Jamal Nizal, a spokesperson for the Palestinian political party Fatah. To all of you, welcome to Counterpoints, and thanks for being here. Well, just before New Year's Eve, the US and the Israeli leaders met, both expressing their desire to move to phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire plan. But that meeting came and went without any announcement. So here we are, 3 months after the truce came into effect, and there's still no time frame for any progress. So Dr. Nizal, let's start with you first. Why, 3 months on, has this deal not progressed to phase 2?
Well, much like a 5-year-old child wouldn't like to go to the dentist, neither Netanyahu nor Hamas would like to get closer to phase 2. For Israel, phase 2 means a complete withdrawal from Gaza. The requirement on the side of Hamas is to get into the issue of disarmament. Neither Hamas nor Israel are interested in doing that. They have a homework to do. Neither one of them is keen on fulfilling their obligation and according to this agreement. Israel has to withdraw from Gaza. I don't think it's in Netanyahu's interest to withdraw from Gaza now. And Hamas has to disarm. I don't think Hamas wants to disarm. What I'm afraid of is the current situation as it is now can be frozen and beneficial for the two parties involved here, Hamas and Israel. If they freeze the so-called front, Israel gets to keep half of Gaza, and Hamas can stay in power. So it's a win-win situation for the two sides. At the receiving end, we have the Palestinian population in Gaza who are suffering severely from this situation, and the two parties, Hamas and Israel, think they are winning. Both of them are winning on the account of the Palestinian people. We want, as Fatah movement, we want to see phase 2 started as soon as possible. We want the Israeli army to withdraw from Gaza. We want the Palestinian Authority to be involved as a government in Gaza and we want the issue of the armament to be resolved within the Palestinian context. We would want for the guns and the factories of the missiles of Hamas to be handed into the Palestinian Authority. We have to find a solution for that. So I'm afraid that neither Hamas nor Israel are interested in getting into phase 2.
Ksenia, do you accept that Israel is effectively being dragged kicking and screaming towards phase 2?
Well, yes, actually, it's a case in which Palestinians and Israelis can agree. Because I do think that, given that it's an election year and you have the most right-wing government in Israel ever, the history of the country, there is simply no appetite for this specific government to do anything and to withdraw from Gaza or to accept right now some kind of a new political body that will be created there. Anybody that will be created, I think that it's absolutely clear. It will have connections with Palestinian Authority, as it should be, because Israeli government has actually not bad relations with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. However, they absolutely decline, any possibility of return of the PA to Gaza. There is security cooperation that is ongoing in the West Bank. Yet at the same time, the same kind of security cooperation in Gaza is absolutely rejected. This is for the Israeli government. Now, if we are looking at the Hamas, I think that we could say at the first day when Trump announced his plan that unless there will be a clear schedule, there will be clear targets, and there will be clear commitment also of the international parties involved, the Arab governments and so on, that they will enforce it. They will simply enforce it. And unless it will happen, then yes, I've never seen basically, an Islamist entity laying down its arms voluntarily. Hamas didn't do it. And there were negotiations with PA for 17 years, 16 years, 17 years, 18 years. And they declined to do that for the sake of the Palestinian unity or anything like this. Now, when they understand that if they can just stall it, they might have it all. They will keep their guns, whatever is left there, and they will keep it into power. I think that it's clear that the interest of both people, and I'm speaking from, I know, for a fact that many Israelis may be not supportive of the idea of the Palestinian state right now. However, I think that all of them understand that keeping Hamas in power in Gaza is really a bad idea. We've been there already. We've been there before. So, and it's of course interest of Palestinian people to have their reconstruction begin, to start having.
But it might be beneficial for Netanyahu to keep Hamas in power, if I may say so. It might be beneficial, politically beneficial for Netanyahu to keep some sort of Hamas government.
Hamas is the best partner that Netanyahu can wish for. And it has been such, a case since 2009. He will not admit it, but it's very clear that everything that was done during 2 years of war was done in order to basically keep Hamas in power in Gaza. And this is what's happening.
Rawan, I can see you shaking your head there. What's your take on this?
It's a bit ironic that myself, who's half Syrian, half Lebanese / German, about to make Aliyah to Israel, I'm a newbie, but I know both sides of the fence. And I care deeply for the peoples in the Middle East. I identify with all of you. It is ironic that I am in a position where I feel compelled to object to equating between the Israeli government and Hamas. That is unacceptable and outrageous.
There we go again. There we go.
The fact that if I may, the fact that the government might be extreme in its approach is understandable, given the circumstances. And we know how we've come to where we are today. We forgot to mention...
This government was elected before 2007, Rawan.
We forgot to mention something important. Ram Gvili, they can give back the body they kidnapped, they stole on October 7th. They killed somebody and stole his body. And the Israelis, whether on the right or the left side of the political spectrum, expect from any Israeli government to bring everybody back. That was the commitment and the demand. However, Hamas failed to find the decency. I'm not expecting chivalry from thugs and gangsters, but at least have the decency to have some compassion for your own people to end this misery. Give back the body, call Israel's bluff, if that is what you're suggesting. You're implying that, no, you're explicitly saying that Hamas is the best partner of this government. I disagree. The Israelis made a deadly mistake by underestimating Hamas, by underestimating them and thinking they will be distracted if you allow money to be injected into the Gaza Strip. But instead of investing into infrastructure, into building anything positive, they built more than 500 kilometers of tunnels underground and failed to build a single shelter for their families, their women and children. Mm-hmm. And if I may ask Fatah or the Palestinian Authority, how did you contribute since October 7th? First, you could not prevent October 7th from happening. And since then, do you have that kind of ties that allows you to ask anything of Hamas? Why should you be trusted in the Gaza Strip? People do not trust you, understandably. Your people, not only the Israelis. I was recently in South Africa and I met Gazans who left the Gaza Strip recently. And I was shocked to hear that they believe that no politician, they paid to get out, and they believe there is not one single candidate among the Palestinians who can navigate out of this mess. So they do not trust you. What is your legitimacy, your credibility? It is concerning, of course. With all due respect, I don't see you being an effective partner in Gaza.
All right, Dr. Nizal, pick up on that and respond. But we are going to come back to this, the Board of Peace in greater depth in our coming segment. But obviously, respond to those comments from Rawan. Jamal?
Yes. Well, I'm not seeking Rawan's vote. And if she declines from voting to the Fatah movement, I will thank her for that. Don't vote for us, please. So what we want is to win the trust of our people. They know what we can do for them. For example, we can avoid dragging our people into a catastrophic situation as the one Hamas got us in by doing what they call the October 7th, or the Tufan al-Aqsa, which is a silly word. It has nothing to do with Al-Aqsa Mosque. They did this, and it's a mysterious issue that hasn't been cleared because the Israeli government refuses to allow any investigation commission.
The Dome of the Rock is, sorry.
The Israeli government will never give us the information, the complete record of what happened on October 7th. So this is for the Israeli government to clear this issue. But when it comes to Fatah or the PLO, as you have seen, the border crossing to Rafah cannot be reopened without reinstalling the Palestinian Authority in this border crossing. It's an international agreement, the agreement of 2005. That's a partnership between the Europeans, the Egyptians, the Israelis, and the Palestinian Authority. Our strength is our political status. The entire world recognizes the Palestinian Authority and the PLO as the representative of the Palestinian people. The international community wouldn't be engaged into the reconstruction process without the Palestinian Authority playing a major role in that. The international community wouldn't send forces, deploy forces in Gaza without a specific role of the Palestinian police headed by the Palestinian Authority. So our program as a Fatah movement, as a PLO, is a bridge to the international community. What Hamas represents is a wedge between the Palestinian people and the world, because the world says, as long as Hamas is in Gaza, we will not be engaged in the reconstruction process. So the PLO, Fatah is a chance, is an opportunity for the Palestinian people, and Hamas is an eternal headache that is imposed on our people by Israel. Israel financed Hamas. You know that. They installed them in Gaza, helped them stay in power, and now they can't do anything about it. And I am sure my counterpart in Israel agrees with me on this. It takes two to tango between Hamas and Israel. They played this card for almost 18 years.
I just want to add to that, Rawan, it takes, to be local in order to understand these little nuances that perhaps, escape you when you are abroad and overlooking the situation.
I am a local. I'm talking to you from Jenin, Rawan, by the way.
Yeah, but I want for
I'm in
you to know that I
Jerusalem.
remember
I
vividly
don't
the
appreciate
elections
the
of
condescending
2009
remark. Maybe
when
I know more than you think.
when Netanyahu decided to run on the ticket of "I will bring down Hamas." I will bring down Hamas. That's what he promised in 2009. But then he decided not to bring down the Hamas, but actually just the other way around. And in 2015, when I was a member of Knesset, and when I was sitting in the same parliament with Bezalel Smotrich, who is currently not only in the Ministry of Finance, but he's also one of the ministers in the Ministry of Defense and very powerful man in the West Bank. Then I remember him saying, Hamas is an asset because Hamas is extreme. As long as they're in power, they're not obliged to do anything, with the peace process. But the Palestinian Authority that is more moderate, they're an obstacle to us, to the extreme right wing in Israel. They are an obstacle. And this Netanyahu embraced exactly this theme, and he integrated well when he could basically, use the circumstances in 2019 when PA stopped sending any money to Gaza. He could just take that and yes, to finish off Hamas militarily, financially, in every single way. Instead, he went to beg for money for Qatar, who is an enemy of Israel and the enemy, I think, actually of all good people. Not only Israel, but, in this sense, this is, and I stand behind my words, Hamas is a partner. He chose his partner. He declined to be a partner with Mahmoud Abbas, with the Palestinian Authority, and he very consciously decided to partner, to gear up with Hamas.
Okay, we're going to come back to, as I said, the role of who should play what role on this board of peace if we're ever to get to phase 2 in our next segment. So I'm just going to put a pin in that discussion. We'll circle back to it. Rawan, I want to ask you, because you come to this debate perhaps with a broader regional perspective, Egypt and Turkey have suggested that phase 2 should start first. The International Stabilization Force should be allowed in to create a buffer zone, and then Hamas can disarm. The disarmament can begin when there is an international force in place. That seems like a sensible compromise, doesn't it?
Not really, again, because the left in Israel expects everybody back, including a dead hostage who was stolen. And there's a lot of heat, a lot of debate, a lot of conflict within Israeli society because they expect everybody back. Egypt and Turkey are like the mother and father of the Muslim Brotherhood. They would gladly help Hamas stall. No, you cannot allow them more time. Look at what's happening in Lebanon, where I have family. I watched the decline, what Hezbollah's done, and I'm watching the Lebanese fighting to get rid of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah still stalling. Do we allow Hamas to do the same? No. I believe that in the past, yes, many.
So
Israeli
if I may jump in, why is it
to be
legitimate?
pragmatic.
Why is it illegitimate to criticize Hezbollah and not legitimate to criticize Hamas?
We are criticizing Hamas. I don't understand what you're talking about. We are criticizing Hamas. I believe that I called them a little earlier thugs and gangsters, and I do not expect chivalry from them, just a little bit compassion for their own people. It is not acceptable that they stall, and the least we expect is that they disarm. But every day, especially on Arab media, they refuse to disarm. And this is something known to everybody, except for the average naive Westerner. If they will not disarm, how can we imagine any alternative vision imposed or in any way effective in Gaza? We know that they are not trustworthy, they have ill intentions. And in Egypt, even if the government or the president is not fond of the Muslim Brotherhood, they have many, many supporters. And when we know that Erdogan is concerning, what Turkey is doing in Syria is concerning, isn't it legitimate that Israel today is very, very, very skeptical when Turkey is involved in any suggestions because we don't see it as sensible? We know that they have ill intentions.
Okay, Ksenia, do you want to pick up on that? I mean, what's the feeling about allowing this Turkey-Egypt plan to go ahead? Do you think that it's a sensible idea to allow this international force in before Hamas disarms?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that, on the hostage issue, there is absolutely clear in Israel that the right side, the left side, they all agree. The hostage has to be the body of the hostage. Unfortunately, it's a body. It's not a living person anymore. He was killed by Hamas. It has to be repatriated to Israel. Okay, so this is his obligation by Hamas. Israel intelligence has reasons to believe that Hamas is deceiving. It is always deceiving. It's not the first time. It does not have any.
But what if the body is already in Israel and we don't know of it?
Sorry,
what if
Jamal,
the body is already in Israel and we don't know of it?
It does not have any compassion, neither for the Palestinians, not for the Israelis, of course. So we do not expect it from them. I think that the issue of the international peacekeeping contingent is the most weak thing in this plan that was introduced by Donald Trump, because it's unclear to this day what is the mandate that these forces will have, and who will they be exactly? Because President Trump mentioned that there are 59 states that are ready to send their troops. Unfortunately, we know that this is not exactly true. It's not compatible with the reality as we know it. And many countries want to stay away. And because they understand that it's a hot mess, they don't want to be involved in that. Mm-hmm. I really suspect that there are only two parties that want to be engaged in disarming Hamas and actually can be engaging in this. One of them is Israel, which I don't think that at the stage after the ceasefire needs to go back. The second party is the Palestinian Authority that has the gunmen, that has, the firepower, that has the ability and the desire to rule Gaza again, and for the sake of the people to get rid of Hamas as a military power forever. But they are not allowed to even come close, there. So we will never know, perhaps, whether it's possible or not. As for the, involvement of Turkey, I assess it as very negative in any kind of way, So, there is a huge difference. Sorry, Rawan, but I'm an expert on Egypt, actually. This is the object of my academic studies. Huge difference between Egypt and Turkey. And the attitude to the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm sorry, it's not that their president is not fond of Muslim Brotherhood. No, this organization is officially banned in Egypt, and there is a huge struggle to that they finance them, to get rid of them, so it's not the same. But cannot be said about Turkey. So I do not believe that any presence of Turkish soldiers, of Turkish money, of Turkish investments, of Turkish advisors or anything like this can be beneficial, not for Israel and not for the Palestinians. There are moderate Arab countries. We are, looking forward for them to take a more significant place in this process. And those were sidelined, unfortunately, during the last 3 months. United Arab Emirates. Okay. These are the countries that should be leading this effort, along with Egypt, Morocco, and the other Sunni moderate countries.
Before we move on to our next phase, I just want to ask you very quickly, Dr. Nazal, we've been hearing about the return of this final body of the hostage, who is unfortunately deceased, and of course, every hostage, be they alive or unfortunately not, are of equal value. Is there a sense, though, in your mind, that just as it can be argued that Hamas is playing for time by not disarming, is Israel playing for time by saying, well, there's one person that still hasn't been returned, so phase 2 cannot start until then? Is this an unsavory tactic?
We cannot trust the Israeli government because it is wicked. We cannot trust Hamas because it is ignorant. When it comes to the issue of the last remaining body of the last Israeli hostage, it might well be that his body is already back in Israel without the Israeli government telling us the truth. But they use this issue as a pretext to continue with not entering into phase 2. It could also be that the carpet bombardment that Gaza was subjected to by Israel has destroyed also the body of this Israeli individual. So we don't know the truth, actually. But it could be that Israel is using this as a pretext. Israel may have found the body and not told us about that. I'm not willing to believe that Hamas is cheating when it comes to the last remains of the Israeli
Why not? They're cheating with everything else, Dr. Nazal.
They are cheating with a lot. They are deceiving, and they're making a lot of catastrophic mistakes. I'm talking about Hamas. So I don't trust neither the Israeli government nor Hamas. However, when it comes to the issue of the disarmament, there is the easy way that can save the face of everybody, which is allowing the Palestinian government, which has disarmed Hamas and Jihad Islami in the West Bank, in every place that it was allowed to enter. It has a good record of disarming these groups. So if the Palestinian Authority is enabled from working in Gaza, there can be an agreement with Hamas on making Hamas hand in all its weapons to the Palestinian Authority once there are international guarantees for Israel not coming back to attacking Palestinians in Gaza. But Israel doesn't want to give us this card, the card of withdrawing from Gaza and promising to not come back. So if we can give Hamas the guarantee that Israel is not going to attack them again, I believe making a Palestinian government, the Palestinian Authority, work in Gaza would help us tackle this issue,
if I may just
issue of.
Okay, yeah, sure, go ahead, Rawan.
I would like to emphasize a point that was mentioned earlier. The Israelis have intelligence that are almost confirmed. Hamas knows where the body of Ghanikvili is. 1. 2, you would like, as the Palestinian Authority, to give guarantees to Hamas that Israel is not going to target them again. Why should Israel not target them again? Israel
because we're talking about a ceasefire.
I understand, but they also, everybody agrees, including many sensible Arab countries, that Hamas should disarm and dissolve. So why should anybody give Hamas any guarantees? And if you are so effective with Hamas, why didn't you contribute since October 7th? Why couldn't you prevent October 7th? And I'm going to ask you, why were you defeated in Gaza by Hamas? They've driven you out. You remember that very well.
Rawan, are you aware
that one last point, if I may, one last point. I should remind you that even in the West Bank,
how is the Palestinian Authority supposed
to? The Israeli security forces,
Dr. Jamal,
would not be able
we'll let Rawan finish and then I'll come to you.
I just need to emphasize one last point. Without the help of Israeli security forces in the West Bank, no, you would not be able to control jihadist militia members. You would not be able to control your own people.
The Palestinian government entered war with them in Jenin 2 years ago.
And the Israelis help you there, and they still help you, and there are
They didn't. They torpedoed the effort. The Israeli government.
Well,
give me a break, please.
Okay, Rawan, I'm going to let Jamal respond because then we need to sort of get back onto this peace plan and not go back through history. So, Dr. Nizal, a response from you, and then I'll bring us back onto the topic.
Almost a year and a half ago, the Palestinian forces tried to enter the refugee camps in Jenin, because they wanted to tackle the issue of these gunmen who were hidden there. We almost reached an agreement, but Israel destroyed this agreement and decided itself to launch a terrible campaign against the refugee camps, especially in Jenin. The gunmen escaped and they got caught by the Palestinian forces, and some other individuals were arrested by Israel. But the Israeli role in this was destructive. If they gave us time and they refused to let the Palestinian Authority receive arms from Jordan to continue with this campaign. So they played a destructive role, and without them, we would have been successful in reaching an agreement of making these gunmen handing themselves to the Palestinian Authority. I was today in Jenin, and I saw that most of them are being held in the Palestinian prisons because some of them killed members of the Palestinian Authority itself. But when it comes to Gaza, we have to give the Palestinian Authority the chance to be in Gaza to help bring peace and security to our people. People trust us. If you ask people in Gaza, they know why they can trust us. And if you ask the question why the Palestinian Authority couldn't prevent Hamas from doing October 7th, that means you still haven't had discussions with the people you are visiting in Palestine. We are not in Gaza. We weren't in Gaza. How are we supposed to prevent this from happening? What we could do is prevent this from happening here in the West Bank. That we were successful in. And if we saw in October 7th a successful model...
By the way, Israel, not Palestine.
Okay. I'm going to move us back on track. Thank you for your response there, Dr. Nazal. I'm going to move us back onto the
Jerusalem
progress
is
towards
Palestine.
phase 2 of this ceasefire deal, because we are getting close to the end of our time here. And something that you have all raised, actually, brings us to this point, because we have been here before. The first Gaza ceasefire back in November 2023, I believe, stalled in phase 1 as well. And there are some quite legitimate fears that without any concerted progress soon, this deal could go the same way. Now, everyone's been discussing what governance in Gaza should look like and whether the Palestinian Authority should have a role in that. Ksenia, let's ask you, the proposed Board of Peace still hasn't eventuated. We know the former UK PM, Tony Blair, was supposed to be part of that organisation, but his name was quietly removed because of insistence from some regional countries. Is this a pipe dream? Was it ever going to succeed, and will it ever be accepted?
Well, I actually happen to know, some people, some of them are Palestinians, that have negotiations with American representatives about forming, this Board of Peace. I do believe that the American government, the American administration is capable to move it forward if it will prioritize this issue. Because when Trump decided to prioritize the release of the hostages, something that was not, it was not achieved before for a reason. There was not enough energy that we in attempts of Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, the emissaries of Donald Trump. It's not impossible. There's nothing impossible in this idea. But it's hard for me to believe that right now, due to the fog of war, in Russia and Ukraine, Venezuela right now, and so on, that Gaza is actually a priority currently for the American administration. If it's not, if it's being sidelined, and especially if also West Bank, with all of the settler violence there and so on, has been sidelined, then yes, situation will not improve and there will not be a Board of Peace because, it will not be created by itself. I think that, again, it matters also in what order things happen, because I think that if there will be this representative body of people that have, trustworthy reputation, and, I think it will be easier also to get together this peacekeeping force. However, the task itself of governing Gaza, which was also always very, very hard, and it's twofold, more difficult now, or even tenfold more difficult now due to the horrendous situation on the ground. This is something that, again, the Palestinians would need the help from the whole world. And the eyes needs to be, very firmly, on this issue. If it will not happen, then unfortunately, we will just slide into perpetuating of the situation in which, yes, Israel controls, some territory. There are some pipe dreams about establishing some homes, for the Palestinians in Rafah, some communities. I don't think that this is realistic. If there will be no alternative government, if there will be no vision for Gaza, and for that question, it's not only the American government, it's also Israel. Israel has been unable to answer this question since 1967. What does it actually want to see in Gaza Strip? How does it see the relationship with Gaza Strip and with Palestinians in general? I think that the moment that we will honestly answer that there is no other alternative but the two-state solution, yes, it's like the wheel, you cannot reinvent it. It's been invented once. So since then, it's the only viable solution on the ground. When we will get again, with our leadership to this realization, then, it will be easier to answer all other questions.
Mm-hmm. Rawan, from a regional perspective, this idea of a Board of Peace, do you think it is a viable option? And then when you hear US President Trump saying things like, well, now that they've removed Maduro, that they're going to run Venezuela, President Trump says he's going to be the head of the Board of Peace. Is this a colonial project?
Not really. Let's go back to the region. Of course, the US has a lot of influence here, but fantasies will have to adapt to reality. So I agree with your guests, because you can see, although we disagree on the future of the region or the way we imagine it, we agree that we need a solution. Things cannot continue the way they are because there are children who did not choose where they were born, whether they were born in Kibbutz Be'eri or in Rafah. They had nothing to do with it. And we have the responsibility as adults in the room to try and push for a solution. I do not know if the Americans are willing to adapt this vision, but reality always forces them to be pragmatic. And this has happened even with President Trump. Now, here on the ground, I hear an Israeli, and I know that she means well, recycling an old solution that failed. If the two-state solution was implemented, if it was possible, if it was realistic, if it was optimal, it would have happened. It's never going to happen. But talking about the two-state solution, and as your guest earlier said, that Jerusalem is Palestine.
Now you talk like a spokesman of the Israeli government. I don't think you should do that.
How about, as you mentioned, that Jerusalem is
It will happen. The Palestinian state is already a reality.
I will listen to
Why
you
don't
in
you
a
take a
moment.
taxi and go to Ramallah, where you can see the Palestinian government and institutions?
I would get killed there because I would get killed.
Why don't you take
there.
a taxi and go to Ramallah? You will see
because
the Palestinian state by yourself.
I would get killed there. In Israel,
Why would you get
I am
killed?
safe. I'm safe. So my point is, if we have very
I just been to Ramallah.
What BS are you saying?
Let's let Rawan finish her point, and then I'll bring it to both of you for a response. Rawan, finish off your point there.
What? Well, that's really outrageous and silly. It's also not really.
Jerusalem is de facto Israel. It's de facto Israel. It's not Palestine. Because Jerusalem, as someone who studied Islamic studies, and I'm
Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine.
We're not going to get into the redrawing of borders. Let's focus on the point at hand. The
Jerusalem
border peace,
is the capital of Palestine.
Jerusalem is not mentioned once in the Quran. So if we go back to reality, the two-state solution, maybe we should consider that Palestine, when we use that word, we should
سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد
Palestine that was already divided. 78% of the land became Jordan. The 22 remaining, the Jews accepted to divide. So it was possible, but the Palestinians said no repeatedly. We've reached a point where we should stop attempting to recycle old solutions that failed. Let's be real.
We have to recycle the old talking points also.
All right, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to bring us back onto the topic at hand. We've only got about 5 minutes left. So let me go to you, Jamal. Is the two-state solution dead? And I also want you to circle back to this board of peace. Would the PA support the board of peace? Does it support the board of peace, regardless of whether or not it has a seat at the table?
The PA supports the Trump plan, and we supported the UN Security Council calling for implementing it. We believe Mr. Trump wants to see peace achieved in the Middle East, and we know that he aspires to widen the Abraham Accords. And for that to happen, it takes for Israel to recognize Palestine. This will happen. Maybe not in my lifetime, but I hope it will. The Palestinian state is a reality. The institution building in the Palestinian Authority is a reality that is visible for the eyes of everyone who can visit this place. We know Israel is doing its best to weaken the Palestinian Authority and sometimes to destroy it. And while Israel gave money to Hamas, Israel is still withholding the tax revenues that belong to the Palestinian government, which constitute 65%
of
the monthly budget of the Palestinian Authority.
Okay, we're almost out of time, Rawan, so I'm going to let Jamal finish, and then I'm going to hand it to Ksenia, or else we're going to run out of time.
You started your show, you started your contribution, Rawan, by criticizing us for equating Hamas with Israel. And now you're acting like an Israeli spokesman, a spokesman of the Israeli government who believes that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel and not of Palestine. Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine. The state of Palestine will be born. I know this because I know how persistent the Palestinian population is. I'm now in the city of Jenin, and I grew up in Jenin under curfew. The city is sometimes under curfew, but the people are here. I came from Jordan just a week ago, and I see the number of the Palestinian people who come back is more than the number of the people who want to leave the place, although the border crossing to Jordan is open. So the willingness to stay here is very big, because This is the land where we're born, and this is the land where we want to be, and this is the land where we aspire to be free, and we will be free, even if you don't want us to be.
Okay, Ksenia, let's round us out. What's your take? This board of peace, can it succeed? Will it succeed? And is there a concern that President Trump is going to run Gaza the way he says he will run Venezuela?
Well, it doesn't seem that he will run either Gaza or Venezuela, and I think that the big danger is that not an expert on Venezuela, but I do happen to have expertise on the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, and also as Israeli, as a concerned Israeli, I think that this is should be our priority. That this plan will succeed. This is currently our best chance, our only chance to get out of this mess, of this horrific mess. And to start transitioning to something better. So there are no guarantees. And again, it's something that it's in the hand of the people themselves. I'm not an advisor to the Palestinian Authority, but if I would be, I would say to them, listen, start to combine, by yourself right now in some kind of word, and show, to the world that, there are capable people that know what to do, they know how to run place. And again, I have to just remind everybody, not Indonesian soldiers, not Turkish governors, not anybody. They have none experience in Gaza. It needs to be Palestinian to have experience in Gaza and to understand who is against whom and what is happening there. I do believe that without, a very significant Palestinian presence, a good team of people, that will be willing to take this very hard task on them, there will be no process. There will be no progress made for Gaza or for all of us. We need for this ceasefire to succeed. There is no other way. The other way is bloodshed, and we certainly do not want that.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, so I'm going to have to end it there. But this has been a very interesting discussion. These coming weeks, hopefully not months, may give us some sense of direction. But I appreciate the contribution and the analysis from all of you. It's been a wonderful discussion. Rawan Osman, Middle East commentator, thanks for being with us. Ksenia Svetlova, former Israeli Knesset member and executive director of ROPES, and also Dr. Jamal Nazal, spokesperson for the Palestinian political party Fatah. Thanks for being with us on Counterpoints. And for all of you watching, thanks for tuning in to this episode. You can, of course, keep up to date with all of our latest debates and interviews by subscribing to Al Arabiya English on YouTube and, of course, follow us on X and TikTok. We'll see you for the next debate.